It is the Savage Nation. I'm filling in for myself today. I intend to be myself, but I'm filling in for myself because I think most people are somewhere else today, traveling on the road. A lot of you don't even have anywhere to go because, well, you have nowhere to go. You have no family, no friends. It'll be you and a Swanson TV dinner tomorrow, if that at all. Many people don't even celebrate Thanksgiving. Some don't celebrate it because they're religious. They don't even recognize the holiday. Others don't celebrate any American holidays because they're anti-American or they believe that they're all myths anyway. Or worse yet, some hate America so much that they perversely don't celebrate any of the holidays. And I'm going to talk about those man-made myths. Are myths true? And I'm going to use the myth of Thanksgiving as one example. I'm going to also talk about the myth of toxic masculinity, which is being pushed by man-hating, anti-family, godless, feminist, fascists in America today. The myth of toxic masculinity. Now, I'm going to have to go back in time to the Salem witch trials. Those of you who know a little bit about American history know about this hysteria. And how it relates to the hysteria against men today in the USA is something I want to do today. Even if some of the accused men admit to guilt, the charge is now being leveled at all men, innocent and guilty alike. And their public hangings, is something to behold. It is like the Salem witch trial hysteria of 1692. Now, the Salem witch trial hysteria of 1692 was fueled by the Puritan strict religious standards and intolerance of anything not accepted by their scriptures. The largest account of witch trials, as well as deaths by witch trials, occurred in Salem, Massachusetts, a village heavily populated by the Puritans. Now, as it turns out, and this is something you probably didn't know, the roots of the witch hunt in 1692 were rivalry, avarice, greed, and intolerance of any doxy outside the Puritan doxy. How does that relate to the persecutions for sexual predatory practices and moral misconduct and persecutions of men in 2017, which are being caused by the strict liberal intolerance of anything outside the scriptures? The current climate allows for accusations to be confirmed as guilty verdicts against the accused without a trial of their peers. And they are surely condemned, the men are today, as were the unfortunates in 1692-93 during the Salem witch trials, which were, although in theory legally codified into hearings, you have to understand there were no hearings. They were a series of prosecutions of people accused mainly by preteen girls of witchcraft, which resulted in the executions of 20 people. They were not the less a public hysterical persecution, which we are again seeing today in the war against men. These were later determined to be persecutions driven by Puritan zealots who were fueled by Reverend Samuel Parris, the initiator, whose daughter started the accusations against anyone she didn't like. And outside their influence, the rival Puritan family, the Porters, tried to organize the villagers against the witch trials. However, they failed, and many of their supporters were then accused of witchcraft. Does that sound familiar? Where today, if anyone in the media says, hey, wait a minute, slow down, this attack upon all men, how do you know they're all guilty? They then suddenly are attacked by the venomous lawyers and media government complex. But going back to the Puritans, the property of convicted witches was forfeited to the town Puritans. So not only was this a religious and political persecution, the roots of the Salem witch hunt were deep in avarice and greed. And now, my friends, you know the rest of the savage story. And isn't it the savage truth today? Isn't it a savage truth today that the myth of toxic masculinity is being pushed by man-hating, anti-family, godless, feminist fascists? Is that not the truth? Irrespective that some of the men may be, quote, guilty of some of the accusations, have they had a trial? The only thing left is for their property to be seized. That's all that's left. I want to talk about the myth of Thanksgiving for a minute. And does man need myths? I mean, was there really a Thanksgiving? We like to believe it. I myself, an antiquarian, I like to see the picture of the happy, clean Puritans eating their Thanksgiving on the wooden benches along with their Iroquois Indian friends, all having a kumbaya moment. Cold, crisp afternoon. all getting along. Well, is that a myth? I don't know. I wasn't there. But what else is a myth? How many myths are true? We need myth, by the way. I'm a former anthropologist along the road in my graduate degrees. Yeah, I have to hide it when you have construction workers who were bullies who never graduated high school in the media. I mean, I have to be ashamed of my higher degrees, I guess. When you have someone who is simply a bully with a hard hat pretending to be a family values conservative, I guess it's an embarrassment to say that you actually have 3 higher degrees. But I guess I should be embarrassed and tell you I'm not a construction worker, although I have nothing against construction workers. I detest those who pose with hard hats because their minds are harder than their hats, and their hearts are even harder than their hats, and yet they pretend to be so fair-minded. But let's get back to this today. The myth, the myth, the myth. Well, I can give you the myth of the conservative movement if you'd like. You want me to go there? How about the myth of conservatives in the media who are all holier than thou? One is more sanctimonious than the other. How about that myth? That they're all friends, and they all share, and they're all fair-minded. That's the biggest myth of all. One thing I will say about liberals is they are what they say they are. They don't make any bones about it. They love sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and they don't hide it. The part about the conservative myth that bothers me the most is that all of these construction worker hard hats are phonies through and through. It's all a myth about them being good and better than the left. They're not better, and they're not gooder. And so we'll go back to the big myth of today, which is the myth that I'm talking about, the myth of toxic masculinity and the myth of Thanksgiving, and why man needs myths. I mean, I could tie it into, I know where your mind is going. If you're a close follower of me, as some of you are, and you listen to every word and then try to trip me up in your own head, it's become a national sport. It's better than chess. Is to listen to this guy who thinks he's so smart and then try to trip him up in your head because you're such a grave intellectual in your own mind that you've already caught me in 1 or 2 complex problems, haven't you? Wrong. You're probably saying, wait a minute, Savage. You're talking about the myth of Thanksgiving. You're talking about the myth of the Salem witch hunt. And yet you're pushing a book called God, Faith, and Reason. How can I believe that God is not a myth? How can I believe that the flood in Noah is not a myth? How can I believe that the idea of a Hercules is not a myth? Even though even Hercules is not in the Bible, I'm giving an example. So how many of the biblical stories are purely mythological? I don't know. I wasn't there. But I will say this, mythology is not a lie. Mythology is our form of novelistic poetry. It is what it is. In a way, I learned when I was studying anthropology many years ago that folklore and folk tales are in many ways, they become truths. Folklore and folk tales become truths because we as a human species, we as a human animal need myths. I don't know that dogs need myths. I don't know if cats need myths. I don't know if elephants need myths. But I know this, we as thinking animals need myths. And so I guess I could ask you to call on some of this stuff. But what good is that going to do? I'm the one talking about it, not you. So I'll continue to talk about the myth of toxic masculinity, which is being pushed by man-hating, anti-family, godless, feminist fascists today, being done not so much because they want to purify the human race, but because of plain old greed, rivalry, avarice, intolerance, and the desire to take over whole industries, whole universities, and the mind of the American people. And I guess I should take a spot of a pause right now. How does that work? A spot of a pause. You can't really take a spot of a pause. A pause of a spot. The phone number here is 855-407-2822. I can also talk a little bit about the reality of God, Faith, and Reason, not the myth of it. Numbers don't lie, and the book is doing well. It's in the top 10. I was facing tremendous headwinds with this book. It is not number 1. I wish it was like Trump's war, and I could tell you today that God, Faith, and Reason initiates on the New York Times list at number 1, but it will not, for a few reasons. One, I was banned from Fox News by a hard-hat bully who poses as a friendly Joe Six-Pack, but it turns out the hard-headed bully is terrified of any competition, especially those with better education and better minds. So I have no television, I have only my audience. I was, thank God, put on the Drudge Report. And as a result, the book is probably going to be in the top 10. It's being hidden in the bookstores instead of being up front where it should be in bestsellers or current releases, whatever. God, Faith, and Reason is now found generally under Christian inspirational books, which is not really a bad thing when you think about it. Because you see, there are many Christians in this country who go to bookstores. And so maybe they'll actually find the book tomorrow or today and buy it for the holidays. I don't really know. What really matters is what's between the two covers, to be honest with you. And it took me a lifetime to write this book. And I'm going to ask you again, if you bought the book and you've read the book, or you want to talk about anything in the book, what is your favorite section of the book? Which is a great question, really. Is it Dancing with Hasids, Jerome's Story, My Father's Death, Rabbi in a Brothel, Jewish Gangster, Lonesome Boy on Cold Sand, God is Everywhere, The Meaning of Passover, No Man is an Island? Is it The Burning Man? Is it How Revolutionaries Killed God? Hey, I think I'll look that one up myself, page 137. That looks interesting. Let's see if that's short enough for me to find right now. I need a cup of coffee, by the way. I mean, this is my Thanksgiving show because most of you are going to be gone by tomorrow. Let's see this. How Revolutionaries Kill God. I'll read one sentence. I will take a break, take a breath, have a coffee, and come back to take your calls. The fact of the matter is I'm appealing to liberals out there, real liberals, to understand that liberalism can be a philosophy that's operational and accepting of other people, not a winner-take-all philosophy that crushes anyone who disagrees with them. What's happened now is that there is no true liberalism left in the political world. It seems to have dissolved. I don't know when, and I can't point the finger at who dissolved it. But the true liberals are gone. You can call them progs, as I do, because it's kind of a descriptive term to describe the progressives today. It has a derogatory tone to it, which it should, because the progs are not leading us forward. They're leading us backward into a Soviet era we will all regret, including the progs themselves, who will also feel the steel of the guillotine once it starts falling. The French Revolution should have taught us one thing. The guillotine has an endless desire for blood. Page 137, God, Faith, and Reason. If you can find better writing today, let me know about it. Talking about myths today. Here's a mythology. All right, Jingle Bells. It's all a myth. Okay, so there's another mythological song. Love and marriage. We know how marriage ends up today. Not in your case, the listener. Not in the case of the hard hat. He's perfect. The hard hat people are perfect in conservative media. They're the perfect people. Pure as the driven snow. Not greedy, not avaricious. Sharing with friends, open door policies. That's the mythology. Meanwhile, it's a giant cartel. So you need the myth. You need the myth that the conservative is better than the liberal. That's the myth that you people have bought. You actually believe that the conservative values that you believe are being practiced by the preachers of conservatism are superior to liberal values. Well, the values may be superior, but are the people who are preaching them superior to the liberal preachers of liberal values? Aha. Well, I'll let God judge that because I'm not God. I don't judge other men. Not much. You know a man who doesn't judge another man? Let me know who it might be. I would say if you can find a man who does not judge another man, especially in the media, that would be rarer than a man entering the kingdom of heaven through the eye of a camel's behind or something like that, whatever the myth was. The needle, I don't remember. Jesus said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. What a communist he was. You know what a communistic statement that is to say? It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven? Man, that was blasphemous. That was worse than Karl Marx. I don't believe that's true, by the way. I mean, I learned a long time ago that poor people are generally the meanest people on earth because they have nothing, and so they'll fight over anything. It's only people with money who could actually do good on earth. They could do more good than those with no money. They can spread it around and do some good things. So this whole idea that if you're rich, you're evil, and if you're poor, you're good is nonsense. I knew that from my years in San Francisco's, let us say, North Beach community, where all of the phonies reside, collecting the SSI crazy checks, hating America, hating God, hating Los Angeles, hating Hollywood. Well, you know the whole story. If a dollar flew by the cafe, they'd break their necks jumping for that dollar, jumping over each other's necks to go for that dollar, wherever it was, while putting down capitalism. You find it today in all commie quarters, no matter where it may be. So money is certainly a universal, let us say, honey. Money is the universal honey, but it doesn't mean that if you have a lot of this honey that you're evil. It doesn't mean you got it because you stole it from anyone. Some people make a lot of honey because they're better bees. It's that simple. And so, therefore, I don't believe that myth that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven is true. That's a complicated statement. I hope I got it right. You know, when you think out loud, you got to think out loud. The myth of Thanksgiving, why man needs myths. God, faith, and reason. Too slow to turn it on. Until I listen to it, I'll blow through a stop set. I've given up listening to music for the meaning of the lyrics. What's the point? Can't they just say it? No, they couldn't. That's why they're musicians. If they could just say it, they'd be talk show hosts. Instead, you get a guitar, you grow your hair, you use LSD and other drugs, and you take forever to make one point. You can say it like it is, my friend. I'm talking about those man-need myths. I'm talking about the myth of Thanksgiving. I'm talking about the myth of toxic masculinity. And then we're going into the whole issue of myths altogether. And what is not a myth? So let's begin with, I don't know if I should do this. Can I start about the, I didn't say the myth now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to give you the historical facts that we know to be true about Jesus. I mean, there are facts that we know. And I'm not trying to merge or confuse you by talking about theology and history. I'm talking about what we know historically. We know that Jesus appeared in Judea during the reign of Tiberius Caesar. We can all agree on that, correct? That we all know. We also know that Jesus was a prophet. We also know he was a preacher in the fashion of the Jewish prophets of the time. We know he was a man of about 30. We don't know much more about him. And our only direct source of information about Jesus, his life, and his teachings are the four Gospels. And so, where do we go from there? Well, we can then jump to, who is Gautama Buddha? Is he real? There was a Gautama Buddha, but who he actually was has been obscured by the fat little figure that we see in the Buddha figures. We don't know who he was, and the idols of later Buddhism, we don't know who he is. Maybe he was a lean and athletic man. So we don't know what these men looked like. We know pretty much when Jesus walked the earth. We know he is the person upon whom the religion of Christianity is based. We know that he was a penniless teacher who wandered about Judea, living upon handouts of food, and yet he was so influential that 1 billion people on earth practiced the religion of Christianity. But is there a myth attached to any of this? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know the truth. I do know that weak and sick people were healed and given confidence by his presence. We know that. He gave people a lot of faith. And he went about the country of Judea for 3 years talking about his doctrine. Then he came to Jerusalem. And what happened in Jerusalem? He was accused of trying to set up a strange kingdom in Judea. He was tried upon this charge. He was crucified together with 2 thieves. And so we talk about Christianity today in a mythological way. How much of it is real? How much of it is false? It's up to you to decide. And does it really matter? Does it really matter how much of religion is mythology? Doesn't it matter that religion brings a moral platform and a moral idea to a society? What would society be like if there was no religion at all? Tell me what it would be like. Tell me where there's a pure society, where there is no guidance, no morality. And you'll say, well, communism. How'd that work out for the Soviets, where the pigs at the top of the political hierarchy were the ones who lived like the pharaohs of ancient times? Everyone else was made to live like the slaves of modern times. So I don't know that I even want to do any more of this right now. I think I've given it to you. I think I'll talk about the type of alcohol that you're going to drink over the holidays, because the type of alcohol that you drink determines whether you become merry or maudlin, according to a new study published and posted in The Guardian by Nicola Davis. Notice I did a dance on a dime just now? I did a figure skating figure 17 just now, because I think I've done enough now for 30 minutes on mythology. Although I have great callers on it, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm sick and tired of living through this witch hunt that we're living through, the myth of toxic masculinity. I've told you probably before anyone else in the media where they were going with it. Let me just finish that up. Remember I said to you yesterday and the day before and the yesterday, that the reason they're bringing down both left and right, from Harvey Weinstein to who's the other one, Rose, right? Dyed-in-the-wool leftists and people on the right, some of them, I don't even remember their names, was so that when they went after Trump, which I said they're working their way up to Trump, they're going to reissue all the warrants of lies or warrants of accusations, to be more specific, against Trump by these women who brought them up during the campaign. And they're going to say, well, you know, look, we went after left and right. We didn't just take down people on the right. It's not a thing against conservatives here, which fair is fair. Now we have to revisit the women accusers of Donald Trump, because you know that they were not taken seriously during the campaign. But if this campaign was going on now, he would be toast, because the hysteria of today indicates that all a woman has to do is scream to this, to that. He touched me, looked at me, and all of a sudden she's right and he's wrong. So, okay, therefore, this whole thing, whoever is orchestrating it, and I believe it's being orchestrated from the top. If I said the Obama team, would I know if it's true? Would it matter whether it was true or false? Would it really matter if it was true or false? It may as well be the Obama team that figured out this strategy to get Trump and started with the Weinstein and worked their way up the chain. Okay, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that here we are. And where it's going is where it went today, hours today on CNN, talking about the women accusers of Trump. I told you that this was going to happen yesterday, did I not? Because I'm a reader of the tea leaves. I'm the finest reader of tea leaves in the history of the media. No one can read the tea leaves better than I. I've always been right. And when I'm wrong, I've told you I'm wrong. And I told you where this was going as near as yesterday. So the myth of toxic masculinity was, let us say, codified in the universities first by the mean-faced, clipped-haired, man-hating, anti-family, anti-American feminist fascists. And now, of course, it's like a scythe cutting through all of American society. And so is it a myth, or is there true sexual predators? Of course there were sexual predators. Of course there are. But we've reached a point where it doesn't matter whether there's a true sexual predator or not. All that matters is that the witchcraft is practiced upon as many men as possible. And then they're all lumped in together. No matter how big the crime really was, or no matter how small the let's say, offense was seen to be, it's all the same now. So that's why I jumped to the type of alcohol that determines whether you become merry or maudlin. I'll make that quick one. It's interesting, because what you drink affects your mind. They're not all the same. 53% of participants said drinking red wine made them feel relaxed. Same with beer. White wine, 33%. But spirits, hard liquor, were linked to feelings of confidence by just over 59%, and sexiness by over 42%. But hard liquor, spirits, were more likely to be linked to negative feelings, including tearfulness, with almost 48% of participants saying drinking hard liquor made them feel ill. Nearly 30% made them aggressive. 60% of participants said they linked red wine to feeling tired. I can attest to that. While white wine is the drink least often linked to tearfulness. And only 10% of drinkers saying they associated white wine with becoming weepy. By and large, spirits are having a stronger relationship in pretty well all of the outcomes, apart from those associated with red wine. Yeah, I found that myself. I brought back a case of very expensive red wine from L.A. because I'd never drink it in the summertime. I can't tolerate it. I know about the sulfites. Don't call on it, please. I wrote the book. But come the cold weather, I like to drink red wine. So I brought back a very expensive Bordeaux, 1995, this and that. And I really liked it, but I was getting so exhausted from it. Wiped out, exhausted. Can't drink it. It's a shame. I can't drink it. I have to give it away now. So yeah, the answer is what? Don't drink it all? Trump doesn't drink it all. Give him credit for that, by the way. Is he the first president in American history who's not had it? Who's a not drinker? Was there one before? Like someone I don't know about? He doesn't drink. Can't you give him credit for something? No, that's not good. That's not good enough. So that's what we're talking about. The myth of this, the myth of that. Man needs myths. We have myths. Thanksgiving's a myth. The Pilgrims and the Indians, they got along. They got along great. The invaders came and stole the land, and they got along great. But picture if you were a Native American. We know they're imperfect. There's no such thing as the noble savage. They know what they did. They did the best they could as tribal people. They developed their own physical culture, their own social order, their own music, art, poetry, their own primitive science. They certainly had survival skills that exceed those of ours. Living off the land is not something you can easily dismiss. That's a science unto itself that the Native Americans developed to the highest possible level of knowledge. It's something I've been fascinated with since I'm a little boy myself, going all the way back to birch bark trees up in the Catskill Mountains and making little boats out of them. I was always amazed at people who knew how to use the natural products that we find around ourselves for survival and such. Okay, so the Native American led a life that was very hard, developed it into a very high art form, and they were quite brutal to each other. You think of gangs in inner cities in America today. Now magnify that by 1,000-fold. They didn't just kill each other with an axe. If they captured a man, a brave, from another tribe, they would take him back to their village and torture him to death. Skin him alive, take his skin off him, and throw him out in the snow without skin. No, just so you know a little bit about the reality instead of the Currier and Ives view. Okay, so now you take these tribal people, as advanced as they were in some ways and as brutal as they could be in another. Now you have the invaders arrive on their little wooden ships from God knows where, they're like from the moon, with weird outfits, with steel axes and guns, and they steal your land. They arrive up from nowhere and they steal your land. They start hunting your animals. They hunt your deer. They hunt your turkey. They hunt your bear. I don't know what else they were eating. Who knows? Now, would you like them in your backyard? No, that's the nature of the world. That's the way it's always been. All nations were built upon colonization and bloodshed. There is not any. See, this is the myth that needs to be exploded. It's like America's a this nation, a racist nation, a that nation, compared with what? In a vacuum, it's an imperfect nation. But compared with what nation? What nation on earth was not forged in blood and forged in blood? Murder. I don't know the nation. It doesn't exist. Every nation on earth was forged in blood. That was the mother's milk of the nation was blood. So you say, America's a brutal nation. Well, yeah, well, that's why you're here, you moron. That's why you have the ability to put it down. Because it was such a brutal nation that a putz like you sitting in university gets the ability to put it down and nothing happens to you. You collect a big fat check and go home and tell the world how bad a country is. They let an idiot like you make a living. If it was a really brutal nation, you'd be thrown out of the university for hating the country. But it isn't really a brutal nation. It's a very tolerant nation, and that's why it's going to fall. This nation is so tolerant that I don't know how it can survive. The war upon men is so vicious right now that the enemies of America are laughing at us. What are you going to do, undermine the military? Undermine the warrior culture of the military so they can't even go out and fight the enemy? Is that what you want? Yes, that's what the Internationale wants. Of course that's what they want. You don't see the long lineage of this war against men, do you? No, that's why I'm paid to do talk radio, because I do. And how do you do? Michael Savage, back in a minute. Hey, pay attention. If you own a car, a truck, an SUV that is a couple of years old, how many years old? We'll see in a minute. You know one day it's going to break down. you know this. Now, look, if it happens when you're under warranty, good for you. But if it doesn't, boy, you're in trouble for thousands of dollars. That's why I tell you to go to carshield.com. Because if it does break down, they're going to make it very easy for you. You get to select your own mechanic, or you can go to the dealer. And you don't have to wait for a check in the mail, because CarShield will pay the mechanic directly. That's why they're a good sponsor for this show, because they're there and they're honest, and they paid out close to $2 billion in claims. They're ready to help you. They have administrators give you the VIP treatment. They give you 24/7 roadside assistance, even a rental car while yours in the shop. It's a good deal. I want you to save yourself thousands in potential car repairs. Get covered by the ultimate and extended vehicle service protection before it's too late. All you got to do is call 1-800-CAR-6100, code SAVAGE. Or go to carshield.com, use code SAVAGE, and you will save a big 10%. That's a lot of money. That's carshield.com, code SAVAGE. A deductible may apply. Well, I'm almost through hour one. Notice I haven't mentioned the key words of talk radio of today. I think in 1 hour of radio I mentioned the word Trump once. You did not hear the word Franken. I mentioned the word Rose once. You didn't hear the word Democrat once. You didn't hear the word Republican once. You didn't hear the word Mitch McConnell once. You didn't hear the word Mueller once. Because if I have to do a show that has that in it, I'm going to leave radio. If that's what it comes down to, that's the end of the road. I wouldn't do it. It's such a waste of time. So I was talking about the myths of today, the myth of Thanksgiving in particular, and why man needs myths. Even if it's mythological, we need such a myth of the pure, clean Puritan who comes to America to build a new life and is loved by the Native American. Yeah, right, okay. The calendars, went by the way of the Model T Ford. So I don't know if I'm going to do much more about myths and mythology. I thought it was a good hour, really. I enjoyed that. And I then led to my own book, God, Faith, and Reason, because you could accuse me of pushing a myth that it's reasonable to have the faith in God. Well, let me ask you something. Where does it leave you if you have faith in nothing? Tell me where it leads you if you have faith in nothing. Where does it leave you, and where does it lead you? What do you hold on to in the darkest moments? What do you hold on to in the darkest moments? If you have no faith in a higher power, what do you hold on to? A bottle of booze, maybe? That joint in your hand that every movie seems to make believe is a health food? The most toxic drug ever invented for the average man, marijuana? What do you hold on to? That pill? That booze? What do you hold on to? I'm not really interested in what you hold on to. I don't even want to go down that rat hole with you. Instead, I'm going to tell you about a $16,000 car repair bill I just got. Now, I'm going to read you the itemized $16,891.18 the minute I return. Please help me. From St. Nick to St. Sick in one generation. So in hour one, I talked about the myth of toxic masculinity, the witch hunt of today, how it compared to the witch hunt of the Salem witch hunt trials, the myths that we live with, the myths of the Bible, and things of that nature. And then I promised you in hour two I'd shift gears entirely, which I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about a $16,000 car repair bill I just got. And it's cheap at that, by the way. I'll tell you what I mean by that. But before I do, I have to read you something. It came to me from Craig Smith, who's a friend of mine. He owns Swiss America. They've been a sponsor of the show for 16 years. It's interesting. He said, I know you're busy, Michael, with the program, so please listen. Please consider. In Jerusalem, there is a gate called the Eye of the Needle. A camel can get through it, but he must bow low and crouch down to get through it. So if we humble ourselves, bow, and change our love of money for the love of God, clearly we can get through the Eye of the Needle. Also, the camel has to take off its load or its passenger to get through the Eye of the Needle. Again, just a thought. And he said, you get my juices running. You're without a doubt the brightest person walking the earth. Well, thank you, Craig. Thank you very much. So as promised, during the break, I received a bill. Now, you would say, wow, $16,891.18 for a car repair? And that's not really like that. I told you, one of my hobbies is antique clocks. And I like to buy antique French clocks from 1880, 1890, because I grew up in my father's antique store, as I've written about, talk about in God, Faith, and Reason. I was shaped in that place, And I think there's a beauty in preserving old things. I don't have the knowledge or the wherewithal to collect true antiquities, the Greco-Roman or the biblical. I don't have that kind of orientation. I wouldn't know where to begin. I don't know how much of it would be fake. So I collect stuff that I know something about that isn't that expensive. Likewise with cars. I mean, there are collector cars worth millions of dollars. I don't have the wherewithal for that. I prefer old Jaguars. So I own, and the reason is that when I was young, I always wanted a Jaguar sports car, and I bought one. It was the biggest piece of junk I ever owned. I bought, I'll never forget to this day, a 1959 XK150 drophead coupe in maroon. I had it in Queens, and I practically drove it into the ground. I raced it through Central Park in the snow just to skid on the snow. We had a lot of fun in those days. I don't know how we did it, but we did. But then one day, my XK150, I went out to Queens to some party. I don't know, I woke up, went out to my car at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the car was locked in first gear, and I couldn't get it out of first gear. I got so mad at that car. I called the dealer. I told him to tow it away, and I sold it to him for $800. I remember the crook. It was on Queens Boulevard somewhere. I even remember his name. Who knows what he sold it for? He fixed it up and made some money. That was his business. All right, so the years go on. Now I reach a point in my life where I want cars. I have a little extra dough. So I want to buy. What do I buy? Well, first I bought a 1970 XKE Roadster a few years ago. You've probably seen it on pictures of me with the blue, that light blue color. Everyone loves that color. And it was a driver. It's known as a driver. It's not a show queen. Not the kind of car you tow in a truck to a show, but you're afraid to drive it you're going to get a pebble on it, right? I like a car I can use. All right, I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. Then, a few years ago in L.A., I bought a XK150 drophead coupe, black. This thing was like cleanest car you've ever seen. Showroom. The heritage certificate says it is exactly as it was made. Black, red interior, exactly everything's correct. That car is pristine, although I put a lot of money into that one as well. They all need money, all these old cars, if you're going to drive them at all. All right, so I keep it in the garage. I drive it once in a while. I enjoy looking at the thing. I enjoy taking care of it. It brings me back to another part of my life. Why do you think today car shows are so big? Mecum auctions, whatever. I at night, when I get sick and tired of watching Hitler or World War II, I turn on Velocity Channel to watch a car show. Why? Because I see men who can fix things. I'm amazed that there are men on earth who can machine parts, make the parts fit, put them in, turn a car into something different. It's astounding to watch this. It's a miracle to see the craftsmanship. So, okay, here's the story of my blue XKE. I have it 3 years now. I put some money into it, this and that. It never was one that I would race anywhere or drive it fast anywhere. I was afraid it was going to blow up on me or a wheel would fall off. I never had confidence in it because I never really restored it. Now, listen to the story. You're going to love it. It just shows you how things work. So, okay. I speak to the mechanic, who's a great guy, very honest, and he knows what he's doing. He's been doing them since he's a kid. This guy knows everything you could ever imagine about these English cars. So he says, look, you have about 20% left on your clutch. This was about 6 months ago. I said, all right, I'm not waiting for the clutch to burn out. Let me bring it in and have the clutch done. He said, well, I should warn you, to do a clutch on an XKE, they have to remove the hood, known as the bonnet. That's a huge job. And remove the engine to replace the clutch. I said, oh, my God, those British mechanics, man, they're genius. They really were smart. That was really clever. Well, see, the XKE is a modified D-Jag racing car. You got to understand that. That's why that car is so special. It's a D-Jag racing car modified for the street. So it has inboard rear brakes. It's astounding, some of the design elements of that car. And it was so ahead of its time. All right, so I say, all right, let's bring it in. And let's replace the clutch. Are you interested in any of this? Or you want me to talk about Dems and Republicans? I could stop and do what everyone's doing. Mueller's no good. Now, Margaret, I got to tell you, that Mueller doesn't understand. He's gone way beyond this. Yes, Margaret, that Trump is the greatest man on the planet Earth. And that Mueller's going, yes, Margaret. Blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not doing it. So I'll continue with my little monologue on cars. So I said, okay, let's redo the clutch. So I'm a kind of guy who says, all right, you're removing the engine to put in a clutch. So I'm thinking to myself, back to when I was a kid, you have an engine out, why don't you do something else while the engine's out? You have the engine out, most of the money is in labor already. So I said, look, the exhaust system, I never liked the sound. It never had the proper XKE sound. Let's throw the exhaust system out since you have to remove it anyway. Get me one of those stainless steel exhaust systems out of England. All right, that's fine. I knew what that would cost. So he gets me an SS big bore exhaust system. That's like $22,000 shipping and putting it in. All right. So I said, okay, when you have the engine out, what else can you do? He said, well, you have a slight leak in your cylinder head gasket. I said, all right, let's replace that. So he pulls the head off. I got pictures of all this. So he pulls the head off. And I said, while you have the head off the car, what can we do inside the engine since the head is off? He said, well, we could replace it goes on and on. So I said, well, when you're pulling off the crank, the crankcase, what can we do? This is how it started. So I replaced the cylinder head gasket. Then they pulled out the crankcase. Remove and replace crankshaft. Install rear main seal kit. Rear crank seal conversion kit. Machine crank and end flange to accept crank seal. So, well, why not do it while it's out? Well, what else can you do while the engine is out? Well, the starter was always slow. It's the old English starter. Get me a new high-torque starter motor. Okay, get you one of those. What else can you do when the engine is out? Well, let's tear down the engine short block. Let's remove the pistons. Let's remove the timing gear. Let's clean the cylinder head and pistons. Let's check the cylinder bore roundness for wear. Okay, Mike, he says, we got to hone the cylinders now because we're putting in new rings. We're putting in new piston rings. Well, we're going to replace timing chain, guides, and rails. Okay. How about resealing the oil pan, the timing cover, replacing the front crank pulley seal? Okay. How about replacing the main end bearing? Okay. How about replacing the rod bearings while you have it out? Okay, let's do that. How about the thrust bearings? Okay. So there's the thrust bearing set, the piston ring set, the oil pump clamp, the engine brake-in oil, rod bearing set, main bearing set, coolant. Now, listen, here's the funny part of the story. So almost everything is done about a week ago, except something didn't arrive. I forget what. Yes. So I go in, and he says to me, remember when it was in your garage, I told you there was a slight leak in the rear end differential. You've had it from the beginning. I said, oh, God, no. So I said, no, I can't take the car back. It's not going to leak out of the engine or tranny anymore. These old cars leak like crazy. And they burn. The oil burns on your pipes. It stinks. They're horrible. Thank God for the new cars. They don't stink. So anyway, he said, well, you have a little leak in the rear end. I said, you know what? I don't know if I want to invest all that money right now. Maybe I should just take it back, drive it the way it is. And, in a couple of months if I want to do it. Then I thought, wait a minute. I'm spending all this money, and I'm not going to fix the leak in the rear engine while he has the car in the shop? I said, my wife will kill me. She hates this thing to begin with because it stinks. And it's a danger, a clear and present danger to everyone in the family. No one will even drive in the thing. They're afraid of it. So I said, all right, look, do me a favor. Pull the rear end and put in the new gasket. This is all for a gasket now. Next day I get a call. Ring, ring, ring. Mike, you're not going to believe this. What? He said, you're really smart that you had me pull the rear end off. I said, why? He said, well, it turns out that the pinion gear is completely almost ground up. We don't know how it was running. He said there was a good chance that the rear end could have seized up on you. With all the new engine power that I'm going to have, right? I'm going to drive this thing like a race car now around turns and back roads. I could have blown out the rear end. So he pulls the rear end out. I put in new rear rotors. And, he told me that the rear end on this old Jag XK is used by guys who rebuild cars like the AC Cobras. They're using these rear ends from these old Jaguars. They're built like on a destroyer. They're so amazingly well built. The steel that was used in them was amazing. All right, so the long and short of it is he pulls it out. He can't get the pinion for the rear differential. Only one company in the world makes it. I will not buy Chinese parts. No matter what, I will not buy them. They're garbage. So he says they make it in England. We had to airship the thing in. The part came in yesterday morning. The car's together. It's right now in the shop. He's balancing the front wheels for me, the wire wheels, and he's going to bring it over to my house after the show, and I have a toy for the weekend. Now, in addition to that, I rebuilt the entire suspension. Every gasket, every bushing. You're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you. It turns out that one of the link arms on the front wheel, which was always bothering me, was disconnected from the car. So I could have lost the front wheel, blown out my clutch, had the rear differential blow up, So it's lucky I rebuilt the car. But how many people on earth can actually still do this work is the question. I love craftsmanship. And there were many, many cold afternoons that I've enjoyed going over there and taking pictures. And that's the story, not of the myth of rebuilding a classic car, but of the realities of building a classic car. And I'm not going to talk about cars because you can call 1,000 times on your car story, but the average listener is going to turn the show off. So we're going to go back to the first topic, the myth of toxic masculinity, the witch hunt against men, and the myths that we all live with, including the myth of Thanksgiving, right here on the eye of the needle, the Savage Nation. Where do I get this energy from? How is that even possible? No medication, thank God. No medication. I don't know. Heart of a lion. It doesn't. I'm living for two, me and Jerome. It's my second life I'm living through. But I don't know. I really do think I was put here for a purpose. Now I know it's bordering on sanctimoniousness. You know, I get that. But it doesn't matter what you think. All that matters is what I think about me. At the end of the day, I have to live with me, not you. Think about the trouble I have. So Craig Smith writes this. He says, a camel can go through the eye of a needle. However, it must change its molecular structure. That is what Jesus was saying. We all have to change to see that God loves us, and then in receiving that love, we enter the kingdom of heaven. At least that is how I have always seen that scripture. Jesus was pals with Zacchaeus, the chief tax collector, who was rich and hated by everyone. But when Jesus visited his house, Zacchaeus changed and gave to help people and restored all he cheated people out of. That he changed. That is why Jesus said, today the kingdom has come to the house of Zacchaeus. Just a thought. It's very interesting. Christian charity does not come from the air. It comes from the teachings. And that is why it's a beautiful religion. And that's why the religions that I keep hammering on this show, Judaism and Christianity, which are the founding religions of America, must not be pushed aside for some retrograde throwback view of the world, lest we all be cast into a cauldron. Period. End of story. No more to be said on that one. Should I play the song again? It's my pre-Thanksgiving show. You know, tomorrow most of you are going to be gone. I made an announcement on my Twitter feed that I should. How many of you are on Twitter? Raise your hands. I can't see you. But I have a big following on Facebook and Twitter, so I wrote the following. Where did I put this? Oh, Savage will go live on Periscope sometime Thursday and Friday. Spread the word and stay tuned. I don't even know what Periscope is, but a friend of mine told me I can get on it on Twitter, so I'm going to do that. And I don't know when on Thursday, I don't know when on Friday, if you are on the internet. I'll give you like a notice, a Facebook, Twitter notice. And I don't know where I'm going to do it. It could be in a restaurant. It could be on an ice skating rink. It could be in my... Maybe I should do it in a Jag. That would be fun, wouldn't it? I think I should go on Periscope in the blue Jag. And although I am told it will not leak and will not break down, I can guarantee you I'll be making an emergency call. Oh, yes, sir. We left out that small little washer in there. Well, not a big deal. We only have to remove the engine again. No problem. That's okay. These things happen. I like fussy things. I like fussy friends, fussy cars, fussy food, fussy dogs. I mean, Teddy's the fussiest dog you could ever get. There he is sleeping right now. He doesn't know what's in store for him tomorrow and Friday. When, he's sleeping peacefully here on the Wednesday next to me on his big pillow. I love to watch his face while he sleeps. He looks just like dogs are like 2-year-old children forever. Those of you who have dogs, you know what I'm saying, right? This one's 13. He doesn't know he's 13. He doesn't know that there's more sand on the bottom of the hourglass than on the top. He doesn't know any of that. No pain, no gain. He feels, nothing. So far, nothing wrong with him. I took him off the meds and put him on CoQ for dogs. The guy, went back 4 years in his life. He's, alive. So what can I say to you? God is good. I'm not here by accident. I consider radio a miracle. When you think about it, it's a miracle that you're listening to me. A miracle I can still think and talk. A miracle I wrote God, Faith, and Reason. Oh, my pal. My brother from another mother. Oh, I wish I could play an instrument. I can't. Oh, Buddy. Is Buddy Rich's daughter in the audience? She always used to call me from Las Vegas when she heard this. What a great life it's been. I Got a headache already. Turn it off. I don't know what it is. I'll play. All right, play it through. Not fair. I remember when I was young, I loved the song Topsy Part 1 and Topsy Part 2. I always wanted to be a drummer, but you're not really good at it. You really have to be good to be a good drummer. Anyone can be a drummer, but to be a great drummer is another story. But I found my place in the world of let us say, entertainment. This is still an entertainment medium. I know that many people forget that. They think they're mini Karl Marxes or mini Lenins, mini George Washingtons running around. But fundamentally, we're all entertainers. I know that some entertain more than others, and I hope I'm entertaining you today. I've gone from Jesus to Jaguars in one show. I'm not trying to say anything bad. But speaking of God, Faith, and Reason for 1 minute, I've been thinking about it. Listen to me. I'll know tonight where it is on the New York Times bestseller list, which is it's kind of important because that's what people look at. My last book was number 1. The one before that was number 4, 3, 2, whatever. So I'm thinking about it. Nobody wanted to publish my God book. They would, no one will buy it. So if I had not had bestsellers one after the other, my publisher, Hachette, wouldn't have published God, Faith, and Reason, but they did as a favor to me. They put these words between covers as a favor to me. Now it's out there in the stores. Just follow me for a minute. Follow my thinking. Saying, well, what's the value of this book to anyone out there? What am I just trying to tell everyone my life story? Is there any value to the larger public to read about this? What are they going to get out of this? Because the opening line says it all. It says, I never saw God, nor do I pretend to have any special insights. What you will see in this book are snapshots of God, not a complete film. This book is presented in an omnibus style and does not have to be read in precise sequential order. What you will see is one man's glimpses of God, images along the road of life. I do not represent myself as a theologian or a guru. There are no cheap thrills here for the spiritually bankrupt masses. It is my scrapbook of the highest power through dreams, memories, and stories, much like the ancient texts. So I don't know, the average person is going to read this, and I've tricked you. I must tell you, I have tricked you. I think God permitted me to write this book, and permitted me to have the publisher publish this book, and widely displace it through bookstores across the country, because God knew I was going to trick you. And here's how I tricked you. Almost on every other page, there's a full page with a very small quote from the Old Testament, whether it be from Genesis or Ecclesiastes. I'm making you actually take a look into the Old Testament. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. That's a benign one. But you look through the book. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Genesis 1:26. So when you buy this book or look through the book, you're actually being tricked into looking at the Bible, the Jewish Bible. Did you know that? I tricked you. I tricked you into reading the Bible. In other words, all the English words don't even matter. God used me to write the English words to get you in to read his words through the prophets. What if he says, you figured it out, you jerk, you finally figured it out? What if he actually has a conversation with me at the end of the day? You finally figured it out, Schmendrick. I don't care what you wrote about you. I wanted my words in that book, so that's why I let you think it was about you. So like opposite page 124, it says, thy silver has become dross, thy wine mixed with water, thy princes are rebellious and companions of thieves. Everyone loveth bribes and followeth after rewards. They judge not the fatherless, neither doth the cause of the widow come unto them. Isaiah 122. Okay, so people are going to read the Bible, and they're going to get a little touch of what their grandmother or grandfather or great-grandmother, great-grandfather read on a regular basis, right? They're going to walk away saying, well, I read a little bit of the Bible in that book. His writing's interesting. But they don't realize that I've actually changed them. I've given you maybe the little spark of touching a little bit of the Bible that it's in your DNA. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the most screaming, rebellious, progressive on Dartmouth. It doesn't matter to me. Your ancestors, not 2 generations past, were very, very religious people. And it's still in your DNA. It's encoded in you. And you will respond to it. Oh, I could tell a good story about this. I've told it once or twice in my career. You know what I'd rather do, Robert, since the time is so short? Do we have my mother, Mama Savage, on her longevity thing? I asked, yeah, listen, here's okay, so while Mom was alive, she passed 15, I don't know how many years, it's a blur. But when she was still healthy at age 83, I remember calling her in Florida and having her on the Savage Nation. It was amazing. You'll see where I get my timing from and my sense of humor. When I ask her a loaded question about to what does she ascribe her longevity. So this is, God bless her, Mom Savage, a number of years ago on the Savage Nation. Mother Savage, I was talking with my audience about fond memories and things that influenced me. And I remember the day you took me and Alan to Radio City Music Hall. Do you remember here how radio was done? Remember when they rattled the big piece?
The NBC tour.
The NBC tour.
Right.
And they show you with the horse's hooves to make it sound like a horse on a.
Right.
And then they rattled a piece of metal to make it sound like thunder.
Right.
And then where did you take us to eat? Do you remember where you would take Alan and I to eat?
Oh, we went to the Automat.
No. Well, the Automat was one place. How about when you took us to the Floridian?
Oh, my God. That's right.
Remember they whipped
Floridian, the Californian.
Now, you see, you're in Florida and I'm in California. There was something there. But they whipped the eggs up. What I liked about it is you made eggs. I mean, I don't want to put you down, but they were just eggs. They were flat like everyone else's eggs. But when you went into this place, they had a way to make the egg go up like in a pyramid.
They put something in the eggs to make it puffy.
Yeah, I would have been a foot taller if I didn't eat those eggs, probably what they put in there.
They were delicious. You can't get that kind of food again.
No. Ma, let me ask you this. What was the name of the Italian chain in New York that was Romeo's 50-cent spaghetti that we'd go to, 50 cents a plate? What was it? Was it Romeo's?
I remember now Romeo's.
Remember, it was pretty inexpensive, and it was a chain, and we would go in every once in a while, and it was always...
That's a plate.
But was it Romeo's spaghetti? I think
it may have been that.
What did you eat in there?
Spaghetti. I still love it.
How do you... You're 83, right?
Right.
But you're not on a low-fat diet. You never have been.
I'm not what?
You're not on a low-fat diet. I mean, you still...
I should be.
You should be. But the truth is you and I, once I got my PhD in nutrition, I'd come to your house and you'd always cook the same fatty foods, and I would say, how could you do that? And you always ate it, but God bless you. What else? You like on a Saturday? What do you eat when you go out?
French fried potatoes.
You're 83 years old. You eat French fried potatoes, and what else do you have with it? What other light bite?
Frankfurters. Sauerkraut.
Oh, I love you. But let me ask you, truthfully, you don't smoke or drink, right?
No.
In your life, did you smoke?
No.
I saw once you did when you were 30. You took a cigarette.
Just to show off. Just to show off.
But, so in other words, you think that it's...
Inhale.
So in other words, what you didn't inhale like Bill Clinton. Is that what you just said? You didn't inhale. What, you and Bill Clinton?
No, I didn't inhale.
You didn't inhale, and the president said that. Look what it did for him.
No, I never had any vices.
You never had any vices. But, Ma, what do you think...
All I did was eat food.
So you can eat anything, but what do you think is the secret to longevity?
What's the secret?
Yeah. Because you're an elder. You're 83.
Yeah, in my case, what it is, I think.
What?
No sex.
No sex. Well, that in San Francisco is a sin, what you just said, because these people believe that the more sex you have is better.
They're not 83.
No, you can't argue with that. So you think
that at all.
So in other words, if I have no sex for the rest of my life, I could eat French fries and hot dogs and I'll be okay.
I hope so.
It's not a bad trade-off, I'll tell you the truth. With the problems that sex brings in a person's life, I think I'd rather have French fries and frankfurters, to be frank with you.
Savage.
That is hilariously funny. If only Harvey Weinstein had heard that show and taken it. So Harvey would have been 350 pounds, but he'd still be making movies. Just think about this. If Charlie Rose had me on his show 15 years ago and I told him my mother's secret to longevity was no sex, Charlie Rose would still have a show. He might weigh 50 pounds or more, but think about that, right? But he didn't have me on because I'm not a left winger, so therefore I have no intellect. That's a funny thing, my mother and I got to tell you, God bless her, man. I could see where I got my timing from because she set me up. When I said longevity, she said, what, in my case? See, that's a timing thing. She could have just answered it and said no sex. It wouldn't have been as funny. So I said, to what do you owe your longevity? She says, in my case, I'm teaching you comedy. Yes, no sex, boom. See the timing on that? Like a drum shot. I guess I got it. Got it from somebody. Get everything from somebody, don't you? You got the chicken pox from somebody. So here we are, day before Thanksgiving. What's a guy like Robert De Niro going to do tomorrow, I wonder? Does he like have a turkey? Him and Martin Scorsese, and they're different than you and I, right? They don't have to go to the bathroom. They never get a migraine. They never get sinusitis. Marty Scorsese and Robert De Niro, they never get sinusitis. They never get fearful. Do they go to Thanksgiving, or do they just say he's a mook, he's a bum, I'm going to punch him? And then what do? They act out the roles that they've been acting out for 50,000 years? I'm a mook, he's a bum, I'm going to punch him. I'm not going to that movie. I'm not watching it. As much as I like gangster movies, I'm boycotting it because of Robert De Niro. Point blank, end of story. I told you after the election there are people I won't watch anymore. You want to hear the list? I'm like Madame Defarge. I never forget the people who show themselves to be haters. Who's the guy now who does the God thing? Morgan Friedman? Morgan who? Morgan Friedelberg? Morgan Friedelman? What's his name? Morgan Friedman? Where did he get that name Friedman from? Oh, Freeman. Morgan Freeman, I see him, I click right through him. He was such a hater during the, that's it. That was a lot of them. I saw it, like, right, and De Niro, boom. As much as I like the movies he was in, no more, I won't watch him because of the hatred. It's a shame Al Pacino's in it because at least he's smart enough to keep his politics to himself. They're only actors, man. I don't care what they think about politically. I don't care how smart they may be. I don't care. That's not what we pay them for. We got into music. I got to play some music. I just don't want the show to end. I'm getting an anxiety attack at the thought of the blank slate for the 4 days, and the jingle bells and the sled and the ice skating and the turkey and the trimmings. God. No, I got people coming in. I'm not really alone. I got the family coming up. I got a friend coming in. We're doing the turkey. They're doing the turkey tomorrow. But then I got the bad news. They're doing the trade-off, as I told you yesterday. Okay, Michael, we will go to that restaurant that you love. You can do the turkey. But the trade-off is you got to go to Thai and Chinese on Friday. I said, are you crazy? It's not bad enough I got to run across the bridge and run across the avenue on Friday night to eat that rotten Chinese food again, which I stopped eating years ago. And I got to eat Thai for lunch. So you can't eat anything in those places. Let's say you go there. Say, oh, well, you have a salad. They don't have salads in Chinese restaurants. Everything is like saturated in sugar and salt. What am I going to do? Just drink tea, I guess. 855-407-282. When I come back, we got a few great callers, including Buddy Rich's daughter out of KBT in Las Vegas. Kathy and many, many other callers. I want to take Dave. I don't have the time, do I? I just can't. I don't have the time for any of this. Back in a minute. Let me tell you about sleep, man. It's the most important thing on earth. And I do sleep on a Casper mattress. It's the greatest mattress I ever had. I'm a sleeper. I get the best night's sleep ever. I'm telling you, once you try Casper, you're going to love yours as much as I love mine. And switching to a Casper is a no-brainer. Higher quality, low price, more affordable, I guarantee you, than you can imagine. You're going to sleep nice and comfortable thanks to Casper's 2 high-tech foams. Much better than you'll find in any old, overpriced mattress, right? See, Casper ships right to your door for free in a small How They Do It box. Little, tiny How They Do It. And if you don't like it, they'll pick it up, refund everything from its breakthrough design and superior quality to its packaging to letting you try it for 100 nights in your own home. It's no wonder Casper was named one of Fast Company's 50 most innovative brands of 2017. So listen carefully. Sleeping on a mattress is the best way to try it. So put Casper to the test in your own home for 100 nights risk-free. You heard me. Go to Casper.com, code SAVAGE. You're going to get $75 towards the purchase of your mattress. You heard me right. That's Casper.com, code SAVAGE. You're going to get $75 towards the purchase of your Casper mattress. Casper.com, terms and conditions apply. I can't believe the time. Where does it go, these 2 hours? Where does it all go? Where does it all go when you're having a good time? Who knows? It's like a puff of smoke, the whole thing. The whole thing, but then I'm going to go right down the rat hole of maudlinism right now if I let it happen. The time is past, and all, and die, the dogs. I can't do it. I don't know why I'm such a maudlin guy. I don't get it. It's holidays, I should be happy. I actually get miserable around holidays. I don't think I'm alone in that. It's like, okay, everyone's coming. Hey, man, I don't know. Turkey, the stuffing, But most people are full of anxiety about the family get-togethers. They really are. It's like they're afraid they're going to be judged. Just picture if you live in San Francisco. You left Iowa, like 4 years ago. You were a normal farm girl. You went to school. You got okay grades, Then you come to San Francisco. You figured you want to fit in. So immediately you slept with your girl roommate. That was number one. Number two, you shaved your hair off. You put in a nose ring. You dyed your ears blue and your eyes. You put in a different color eyes. How do you go home to Iowa to a Thanksgiving dinner and say, "Oh yeah, how you doing, Audrey? Oh, that's our daughter, Audrey. How could that be this?" And you can't say anything though. Or the son comes home in a dress. Let's say he left as a normal farm boy. He moved to San Francisco. He wanted to fit in, and he discovered that inside there was really a woman. That he was never really a boy. He was brainwashed into thinking he was always a woman. It wasn't really his softer self or his sensitive self. Now they go the other way. If you're kind and sensitive, now suddenly you're a woman inside. So he becomes a woman. He goes back to Iowa just as a woman. And all these like farm guys, how you doing there, Don? No, he's not Don anymore. It's Gloria. Hey, Gloria. It's very rough to be at holidays around the country today. That's a horn screaming. That's a horn screaming. That Charlie? Oh, he went back to Blakey. Moaning. Bobby Timmons. Trumpet. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. With Lee Morgan, Benny Golson, Bobby Timmons, Jimmy Merritt, and Art Blakey on the drums. Unbelievable. The peak of jazz in America. True. That's authentic American music. Just play it for 1 minute. I don't even want to think about Turkey. Why is no one listening to this anymore? What do they listen to? Some screaming chick? Sounds like she's like in an elevator, buying stockings that didn't fit. My boyfriend left me. You talk about the death of masculinity. Let me say it like it is. Authentic American jazz is masculinity. And I guess it's gone like the dodo bird. Can't have that anymore. Got to have like fake music, saccharine music, fake jazz, elevator jazz. Charlie Parker, Art Blakey couldn't even get a job today. They tell him that they're too limited in their reach. They don't reach enough of a broad audience. Okay, so where are we? It's Thanksgiving, blah, 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 the turkey, the this. I did already, the myth, the whole thing on myths. Is anyone still there? I mean, I looked the other day. I said, what do I have in it? Let me look it up because many people don't know. I asked the guys who run the show, like in New York, I said, where's my list of people listening in the third hour? Because I don't get a lot of calls in the third hour. I'm supposed to make believe, but I don't have the list disappeared on me already. No, it disappeared. I know I got KSFO in San Francisco. I got KKOH in Reno. I got KLIF third hour, Dallas, and only like 200 other stations. And people don't call, though. It's like they hang up. They go somewhere else. I know what they're doing. Don't tell me you're listening to the construction worker now to talk about Mueller. I don't believe that. Are you joking? That's where they go. So I can improvise. Oh, I also did the front suspension on the Jag because I just want to continue that monologue for a minute. The $16,000 restoration bill for the car. I didn't tell you that. Remember I told you the rear end could have blown up? Then the front end could have fallen off? I didn't tell you what he found. You're not going to believe this. As he was looking at the front suspension and replacing all the bushings, the control arms, the ball joints, I just said, do it over. I want the whole thing done so I can race this car around curves and not get killed, right? See, he goes under the dashboard where the steering wheel is, on the steering column, and he says, Mike, he says, it's a good thing you had me look at all these things. I said, why? He said, there's a sort of a U-joint that connects the steering column to, like, the car. He said it was loose. There was a screw loose. He said, if that thing had fallen off, you'd be driving around a curve and the car would go in any direction it wanted and you'd have a steering wheel in your hand. I said, oh, great. Let's hear it for old cars that you restore. Anyway, there are things of beauty that don't work well and things that are ugly that work very well, and there's something in between. This is the Savage Nation. Hopefully it's something that works in between. The phone number is here, 855-407-282. Let's go to KSFO. Dave, line 2. Dave, what's on your mind?
Michael, last hour you mentioned that you may not be able to be a musician, i.e. drummer. I just want you to know you are a musician. You are the John Coltrane, the Stanley Turrentine, the Jimmy Smith of talk radio. And, you know, one of the beauty of that jazz is that those guys were improvisational. They never played anything the same way twice, and their band never knew where they were going to go.
Wow.
And that was part of the beauty of it. And you are that way. And I want you to know your audience is the rest of the band, brother. And we're the best audience in the world because we can follow you.
Dave, aren't you a musician? Aren't you a musician yourself?
Music.
Dave, are you a musician yourself? Dave, are you a musician?
Yes, I play the upright bass.
Upright bass. Well, I'm glad I could do verbal jazz on the show because, you know, I don't just sit here and hammer the same thing every second. If I did, I would have been out of business a long time ago out of boredom. I would have just died listening to the same thing. Democrat, Republican, Mueller, Schmueller. I try to avoid the Trump word today. I think I said it once in 2 hours. All right, I'm sending you God, Faith, and Reason. I don't know people who play jazz like books. That's a joke. Let's take a caller on that. Is Cheryl still with us on WLBY out of Michigan? Is Cheryl still there on line 6? Yeah. All right, Cheryl, let me reach across the large desk I have here, reaching across my lunch, across my toy cars, across my hat. It's like it seems like everything's distorted like right now. I hope they didn't put something in the food. Everything seems farther away, like my hand can't reach the Telos key. I feel like the amazing shrinking talk show host right now. I'm joking. No, but it was far away. Line 6. Cheryl, what's on your mind?
Well, we're mishpacha.
Oh, come on. Thank you for the call. That's it. Once I hear that, it's over. Can you cancel that? We're not mishpacha. I don't know you. We're not relatives. Here's my problem. People think I'm so familiar that they know me. They don't know me. They never met me. I don't want to know you. I mean, I don't want to meet everybody. I don't want to have 4 bodyguards to say hello. I wasn't Bannon in the elevator with 4 bodyguards. She set him up. You see that story about Steve Bannon? Some idiot assaults him in an elevator, verbally assaults him and says, I hope you get what you deserve. So Bannon's bodyguards, jump to his defense as they should because he sounds like a killer. Now she's saying, oh, he was so evil to me. Who is that witch? Where does she have the nerve to go up to a public figure in an elevator and say, I hope you get what you deserve and not expect the bodyguard to try to protect him? That is called assault, by the way. You talk about verbal assault. That is verbal assault. You want to start throwing charges around with sexual assault? That woman should be charged with verbal assault. If someone came up to me and said, I hope you get what you deserve after I was attacked last February, tell me how I would react. Are you people crazy? Okay, you're talking about sexual assault. How about verbal assault? How about the individuals who run the ad business in talk radio who boycott my show? Tell me that's not a form of assault. Tell me about the hard hat on Fox News who is so afraid of competition, no matter how much money and power he has, that he blocks me from appearing on the station. Tell me that's not a form of assault. You want to talk about assault? Just wanted to wake you up, that's all. I wanted to make sure you were still there. 855-407-282. What's this now? Oh, great. KBOZ in Montana. Bozeman. Tyler, out of Montana, what's on your mind?
Dr. Savage, just wanted to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. Long-time listener. I'm 29 years old. I think the first book I ever read by yours was Savage Nation when I was in 8th grade. And I have to I accidentally plagiarized you because you had a line in that book that was so good. I didn't know what plagiarizing was at the time, but I just have to confess that I accidentally lifted it for an 8th grade paper I had to write.
Tell me the line. I want to hear the line out of the book.
It was in regards to you had a chapter on the ACLU, the Savage Nation, and it was about a vet, I believe, that was flying his flag on his property, and the ACLU sued him. And the line was something along the lines of, if you have any ounce of red, white, and blue in your blood, this should make you, super angry, something along those lines.
Yeah, we got to find that line. That is beautiful. Well, I'm going to send you God, Faith, and Reason. Thanks for being such a faithful listener for all these years. How many kids have grown up on this show? Amazing. I'm going to give you guys an assignment for the holidays. Many of you will be bored. Many of you bought the book. Some of you are going to buy it on Friday for your family. I know that. It's going to be the bigger sales will probably be week 2 than week 1. That's the way this book is going to hit. It's going to be a slow burner that's going to pop. I had huge competition this week. Biden's book is number one. Can you believe it? A puke like him writes a bestseller. They distribute 1 million copies. The libs go like lemmings and buy a piece of garbage like that. Who would want to read a book by boring Joe Biden? Number one. What's number two? A picture book for morons about Obama. That's number two. All the big libs came out with a book the same week as God, Faith, and Reason. So I'm running up against headwinds. But I think as tomorrow and Friday hit, well, Friday when they all shop, and then into next week when people start really seriously thinking about the stocking stuffers and relatives and gifts, they're probably going to buy God, Faith, and Reason. I guess week 2 might be bigger. I'm giving you an assignment, though. Here it is. When you have the book, and many of you do, I'm talking thousands of you already have the book, pick out one line from this book, or do it now if you want. Tell me a line that you think will live a very long time. I mean, I've created a lot of lines that have lived, like liberalism is a mental disorder. The stench from the bench is making me clench. So what line pops out of God, Faith, and Reason you think will have legs? That's all. Back in a minute. It is the Savage Nation. What a nice long weekend it is to get away, but I'm not going anywhere because there's nowhere to go. I mean, at the end of the day, you carry yourself with you, right? So why go anywhere? Let everyone come to see you and make them miserable. Isn't that a better idea? I'm joking. Come on now. I'm just trying to have fun here. You know, I'm playing with a toy car on my desk as we speak. I have a plastic 6-window Volkswagen bus. It says love, make love, not war, love and peace. It's got a surfboard on the roof. Every time I get a little tense, I look at this little car, and I'm reminded of a part of my life that never was. You know, just getting in a VW bus, going down to the beach with a surfboard. I never did that. That was like part of my life that I missed. How did I miss that? Well, A, I have a brain. I can think. Number 2, I always wanted to make something of myself. I didn't want to just float around in the salt water like a beached marlin. But it's still beautiful to think of, you know, like going down to the beach in a VW bus, love and peace, make love, not war, surfboard. It's funny what myths are in toys. You know, I was talking about myths at the beginning of the show, right? Watch how this goes now. Follow the improvisation. I started the show by talking about myths. And what is a myth? Is Thanksgiving a myth? How much of religion is myth? The flood in Noah, isn't that a myth? No, he miniaturized all the animals on the earth and put them on a 30-foot wooden boat. I'm supposed to believe in the elephant, the rhinoceros went on, the ostrich, the ant, man and woman ant. A poodle went on, a man and a woman. So that's a myth, the flood, isn't it? Well, there was probably a flood. There's no question that the earth had been flooded and then the waters receded, but it's a myth. We all need myths. But children need toys the way we need myths. Why do children need toys? Because their imagination needs to be activated. They need innocent, beautiful toys to play with. So we are the same as the children. We need toys. And for us, our toys are different. And our toys can take many different forms. They can take the form of believing that we are superior to the next man because we are, quote, conservatives. We're patriots. We stand for America. And all those liberals, even those who fight in the wars, even those who are paratroopers who still might be liberals, they're no good. They're not as good as us. That's a myth. That's a toy that you can play with. Another toy. I mean, this requires thinking to actually not make it so simplistic like them good, Republican bad, whatever. Or, you know, we're good, they're bad. That's an easy way to do it. It's a dumb way to do it. It's a toy. It's a toy for dummies. It's a political toy for dumbbells. It's not that clear. I'll give you an example, the environment. I lobbied very hard last Thursday and Friday to reverse the order on the elephants. It was this show that did it. I don't care who took credit for it. I don't really care. It's like all the Johnny-come-latelys who say they elected Donald Trump, who stabbed him in the back for a year straight. And the minute he won, it was suddenly they loved Trump. A year there were no Trumpers, anti-Trump, hate Trump, this Trump. Then when he won, they're suddenly his best friend. So the same thing on the elephants. I know I did it. I know you did it. I know the show did it. But Trump never said thank you. Who did he thank? Greta Van Susteren, a woman who has no television show. And go figure this one out. Who is advising him? He's the one who thanked Greta Van Susteren for advising him on the elephants. You hear this? A woman who has no show. Or Piers Morgan, no show in America that I know of. Heard by 12 insects. Why does he not say to the Savage Nation, thank you? Why doesn't he ever come on the show? Who is it who's keeping Donald Trump from you? Who? Tell me who it is. Which genius is it in the White House who's saying, don't go near the Savage Nation? You don't need them. You don't need them? Oh, really? With what's going on in the media right now? Wait till you see what happens come 2018. I told all of you listening to the show they were lining him up with all these sexual accusations against all these media figures to go after him. I was right. That's where this is going, and they're going to try and drag him down. And where will he go when they try to drag him down? Piers Morgan and Greta Van Susteren? He's going to have to come back to where he started, talk radio. We created the presidency. Make no mistake about it. I don't need anything. I'm not looking for a job. I'm not looking for a contract or a grant. I'm not looking for a pat on the head. I'm not looking for an ice cream sundae. I'm looking to let you understand. You have to understand how powerful you are. You created the Trump presidency. You, the Savage Nation audience. And frankly, he owes you a thank you. How's that? I represent you. I'm a minister without portfolio. He should thank you for what you did for him. Why he continues to disrespect you, I will never understand. I think I know why. I think I know who's misadvising him. But, fate has a way of playing hands that you don't expect. That goes for all of us, including those with hard hats, hard heads, and hard hearts, including those who have zero knowledge beyond the two-dimensional Dem-Republican game, the Dem-Republican two-step. Some of us dance on four. The myth of Thanksgiving, why man needs myths. God, faith, and reason, why are you buying a copy, who you're buying one for. And also, I will go live on Periscope sometime Thursday and or Friday. Spread the word and stay tuned. Now, what does that mean, Periscope? Well, you have to have Twitter to do it. I'm not going to explain it. I don't know when I'm going to go on, what I'm going to do. It could be at a meal. It could be in a street. It could be seeing a bum in the street. And then I did some Savage Family stories for you, which I'll continue to do right here on the Savage Nation. It's not over yet. You got more. Just stay there. There's more. Here it comes. It's firing right at you. 855-400-7282 if you care to join the program. Talking about myths today. All right, Jingle Bells. It's all a myth. Okay, so there's another mythological song. Love and marriage. Na, 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 na. We know how marriage ends up today. Not in your case, the listener. Not in the case of the hard hat. He's perfect. The hard hat people are perfect in conservative media. They're the perfect people. Pure as the driven snow. Not greedy, not avaricious. Sharing with friends, open door policies. That's the mythology. Meanwhile, it's a giant cartel. So you need the myth. You need the myth that the conservative is better than the liberal. That's the myth that you people have bought. You actually believe that the conservative values that you believe are being practiced by the preachers of conservatism are superior to liberal values. Well, the values may be superior, but are the people who are preaching them superior to the liberal preachers of liberal values? Aha. Well, I'll let God judge that because I'm not God. I don't judge other men. Not much. You know a man who doesn't judge another man? Let me know who it might be. Jesus said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. What a communist he was. You know what a communistic statement that is to say? It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven? Man, that was blasphemous. That was worse than Karl Marx. I don't believe that's true, by the way. I mean, I learned a long time ago that poor people are generally the meanest people on earth because they have nothing, and so they'll fight over anything. It's only people with money who could actually do good on earth. They could do more good than those with no money. They can spread it around and do some good things. So this whole idea that if you're rich, you're evil, and if you're poor, you're good is nonsense. I knew that from my years in San Francisco's, let us say, North Beach community, where all of the phonies reside, collecting the SSI crazy checks, hating America, hating God, hating Los Angeles, hating Hollywood. Well, you know the whole story. If a dollar flew by the cafe, they'd break their necks jumping for that dollar, jumping over each other's necks to go for that dollar, wherever it was, while putting down capitalism. You find it today in all commie quarters, no matter where it may be. So money is certainly a universal, let us say, honey. Money is the universal honey, but it doesn't mean that if you have a lot of this honey that you're evil. It doesn't mean you got it because you stole it from anyone. Some people make a lot of honey because they're better bees. It's that simple. I want to talk about the myth of Thanksgiving for a minute. And does man need myths? I mean, was there really a Thanksgiving? We like to believe it. I myself, an antiquarian, I like to see the picture of the happy, clean Puritans eating their Thanksgiving on the wooden benches along with their Iroquois Indian friends, all having a kumbaya moment. Cold, crisp afternoon, all getting along. Well, is that a myth? I don't know. I wasn't there. But what else is a myth? How many myths are true? We need myth, by the way. I'm a former anthropologist along the road of my graduate degrees. It's an embarrassment to say that you actually have 3 higher degrees. The myth, the myth, the myth. Well, I can give you the myth of the conservative movement if you'd like. You want me to go there? How about the myth of conservatives in the media who are all holier than thou? One is more sanctimonious than the other. How about that myth? That they're all friends and they all share and they're all fair-minded. That's the biggest myth of all. One thing I will say about liberals is they are what they say they are. They don't make any bones about it. They love sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and they don't hide it. The part about the conservative myth that bothers me the most is that all of these construction worker hard hats are phonies through and through. It's all a myth about them being good and better than the left. They're not better and they're not gooder. And so we'll go back to the big myth of today, which is the myth that I'm talking about, the myth of toxic masculinity and the myth of Thanksgiving, and why man needs myths. I mean, I could tie it into, I know where your mind is going. If you're a close follower of me, as some of you are, and you listen to every word and then try to trip me up in your own head, it's become a national sport. It's better than chess. Is to listen to this guy who thinks he's so smart and then try to trip him up in your head because you're such a grave intellectual in your own mind that you've already caught me in 1 or 2 complex problems, haven't you? Wrong. You're probably saying, wait a minute, Savage. You're talking about the myth of Thanksgiving. You're talking about the myth of the Salem witch hunt. And yet you're pushing a book called God, Faith, and Reason. How can I believe that God is not a myth? How can I believe that the flood in Noah is not a myth? How can I believe that the idea of a Hercules is not a myth? Even though even Hercules is not in the Bible, I'm giving you an example. So how many of the biblical stories are purely mythological? I don't know. I wasn't there. But I will say this, mythology is not a lie. Mythology is our form of novelistic poetry. It is what it is. In a way, I learned when I was studying anthropology many years ago that folklore and folk tales are in many ways, they become truths. Folklore and folk tales become truths because we as a human species, we as a human animal need myths. I don't know that dogs need myths. I don't know if cats need myths. I don't know if elephants need myths. But I know this, we as thinking animals need myths. And so I guess I could ask you to call on some of this stuff. But what good is that going to do? I'm the one talking about it, not you. So I'll continue to talk about the myth of toxic masculinity, which is being pushed by man-hating, anti-family, godless, feminist fascists today, being done not so much because they want to purify the human race, but because of plain old greed, rivalry, avarice, intolerance, and the desire to take over whole industries, whole universities, and the mind of the American people. I can also talk a little bit about the reality of God, Faith, and Reason, not the myth of it. Numbers don't lie, and the book is doing well. It's in the top 10. I was facing tremendous headwinds with this book. It is not number 1. I wish it was like Trump's war, and I could tell you today that God, Faith, and Reason initiates on the New York Times list at number 1, but it will not for a few reasons. I have no television. I have only my audience. I was, thank God, put on the Drudge Report. And as a result, the book is probably going to be in the top 10. It's being hidden in the bookstores. instead of being upfront where it should be in bestsellers or current releases, whatever, God, Faith, and Reason is now found generally under Christian inspirational books, which is not really a bad thing when you think about it. Because you see, there are many Christians in this country who go to bookstores. And so maybe they'll actually find the book tomorrow or today and buy it for the holidays. I don't really know. What really matters is what's between the two covers, to be honest with you. And it took me a lifetime to write this book. And I'm going to ask you again, if you bought the book and you've read the book, or you want to talk about anything in the book, what is your favorite section of the book? Which is a great question, really. Is it Dancing with Hasids, Jerome's Story, My Father's Death, Rabbi in a Brothel, Jewish Gangster, Lonesome Boy on Cold Sand, God is Everywhere, The Meaning of Passover, No Man is an Island? Is it The Burning Man? Is it How Revolutionaries Killed God? Hey, I think I'll look that one up myself, page 137. That looks interesting. Let's see if that's short enough for me to find right now. How Revolutionaries Kill God. I'll read one sentence. The fact of the matter is I'm appealing to liberals out there, real liberals, to understand that liberalism can be a philosophy that's operational and accepting of other people, not a winner-take-all philosophy that crushes anyone who disagrees with them. What's happened now is that there is no true liberalism left in the political world. It seems to have dissolved. I don't know when, and I can't point the finger at who dissolved it. But the true liberals are gone. You can call them progs, as I do, because it's kind of a descriptive term to describe the progressives today. It has a derogatory tone to it, which it should, because the progs are not leading us forward. They're leading us backward into a Soviet era we will all regret, including the progs themselves, who will also feel the steel of the guillotine once it starts falling. The French Revolution should have taught us one thing. The guillotine has an endless desire for blood. Page 137, God, Faith, and Reason. To me, it's already the end of the year. The book came out last week. It's doing well. The holidays here, my favorite holiday is always Thanksgiving. I remember being in college. To this day, I remember going to Queens College in the city of New York. And on that Wednesday, before the Thanksgiving break, I distinctly remember what I did every Wednesday during those years at Queens College. I drove one of my muscle cars that made too much noise to a liquor store across the street from the college. I bought a pony of booze, and I got drunk with my friends. That's what I did. I don't do that anymore because I'm a wise, mature man. But it always symbolized to me. I can remember those cold, cold nights in New York with the motor running on the old Jag, the smoke coming out of the back. Those are great nights. Well, I'm still a car nut. I'm not the same person I was, or am I? In some ways, I'm still the same person. Do you know that? You know I haven't changed? I haven't changed. I'm thinking about my life. I'm really actually, people say, well, what am I off the air? About the same as I'm on the air, incidentally. No two-face for me. So I've been preaching my faith of Borders, Language, and Culture for years, almost a quarter of a century, on this nationally syndicated radio show of mine, Borders, Language, and Culture. When the Johnny's Come Lately didn't even know about the borders, nor the language, nor the culture. Then they came along and imitated, aped, mocked, ridiculed while copying. And a quarter of a century later, now even liberals are saying to me, you know, Savage, in the beginning I thought you were a bad guy for preaching Borders, Language, and Culture, and now even liberals agree that you were right. You were ahead of the curve. I've heard that from liberals, good liberals. I'm not talking about the ones who throw rocks, the ones who beat people up. We're not talking about the thugs who should be in prison in Antifa. We're talking about liberals who now agree that Borders, Language, and Culture define a nation. I'm telling you how it is, you know. Be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. All right, here we go, sliding into home plate here on the Savage Nation. Most of the nation is gone, except for the diehards like yourself listening to the show. The media has gotten worse by the day, more partisan than ever seen in American history. On CNN yesterday, a guy named Camerata, a woman, man, I don't know, was talking about the Border Patrol agents who were attacked by illegal aliens from Mexico, smashed their heads in with rocks. And this person, Camarada, says that the illegals did not attack the border agent. This person said they sustained blunt trauma on their skulls from falling. This shows you why Donald Trump must step in and say enough is enough. It is one thing to present a perspective that is not that of the president or not that of the sitting party. It is another thing to lie in such a way as this. Donald Trump has the power. He has to step in and seize control of these individuals and read the riot act to, who is it who runs CNN? A Zucker? Another Zucker? I don't know who runs it. Another Zucker runs it. I don't know if it's related to Zuckerberg, but it's another Zucker. He's got to say, here's the way it is, Zucker. You get rid of that Camarada for doing a thing like this, or we're going to do anything we can to destroy your network. You see, a president has quite tremendous powers that these people don't understand yet. Here's another one. Second U.S. judge halts Trump's proposed transgender military ban. NBC News. In a preliminary injunction issued Tuesday in Baltimore, U.S. District Judge Marvin Garbus ruled, oh, you ruled, Marvin, did you? You ruled in your stinking robe that transgender service members have, quote, demonstrated they're already suffering harmful consequences due to the proposed ban, including threat of discharge, stigma, and the cancellation or delay of surgeries related to their gender transitions. How in the world can this country survive when we give more and better care to transgenders than we do to combat troops? And by the way, you psychos out there, you like to pass the argument along that a person who's transgender and going through surgery and hormone therapy is just as good a soldier as a healthy American male. Do you know anyone who has had their male part cut off who can still fight, especially when the wounds are still fresh? Do you know anyone who's on hormone therapy who can face an enemy under fire? Are you people that psychotic? Yes, you are. That's why you're called liberals. And Judge Marvin Garbus is an example of the sickest sort of filthy judge that we in America despise. And there has to be a law that permits us to throw judges like this out because the stench from the bench is making me clench. Next, happy Thanksgiving for Michael Savage. Roy Moore's communication director resigns. I don't know what I'm supposed to make about that. John Rogers has resigned as communications director from Roy Moore's Senate campaign. Reached by phone on Wednesday, Rogers confirmed his resignation and declined to comment further. All right, he's probably thinking about his job afterwards, as anyone would. That's all. Well, that's it. We're moving to the end of the show here. You know what's coming right after Thanksgiving. They already fired the salvos today on CNN. They're interviewing all of the QVC jewelry wearers who accused Trump during the campaign of doing this, doing that. And all of you who've been celebrating the downfall of all of these men are now going to have something to really salivate over, which is the witch hunt against Donald Trump. The witch hunt was always about Donald Trump. It began with Harvey Weinstein, and it won't end until those behind this entire witch hunt, and I'm sure that there's a secret group that's doing this, a group that was so smart that they were able to pull down people both left and right on the aisle to say when they go after Trump, you see, it's not partisan. Because we took down liberals, big liberals, and now we're coming after the truth. That's what they've been doing. I have no idea who this group might be, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Hussein himself is not the mastermind. Well, that's it, the myth of Thanksgiving, why man needs myths. I'm sure looking forward to my myth tomorrow with my friends and family. God, Faith, and Reason. I hope you're buying a copy for someone in your family who really needs it. And I will go on Periscope sometime Thursday and or Friday to talk with you directly. Periscope, that's on Twitter. Well, have a great Thanksgiving. Whether you're alone or with people, I'll be back. Visit me at michaelsavage.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Get the hat, get the shoe, get the mustache wax. Thank you for listening.